All right, welcome back, everybody. Today is April 22nd. It is NFL Draft Week. So today we're going to spend the entire episode doing a mock draft for you. Luke's just going to be doing all the odd picks. I'll be doing all the even picks, and we're just going to try and predict. This is more of a predictive mock draft rather than what we think each team should do. So we're just going to see how many we can get right on draft day.
Yeah, so just hopping right into it. I think the first two picks are pretty set in stone, so let's just go ahead and put Cam Ward to the Titans and Travis Hunter to the Cleveland Browns and break those two down a little bit.
There we go. Locked in. Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think the top two, maybe even the top four picks might be pretty set in stone. It seems like Ward has been locked up to go one for probably since the combine. I know there were rumors of Tennessee trading out, maybe with even the Giants at three to pick up Abdul Carter, but see, like they made the investments in free agency to the O line, even though the linemen they signed weren't top tier talent, they still put some bodies on the line, and yeah, they're going number one, taking their franchise QB in Cam Ward, who I think is the best QB in the draft.
Yeah, I agree. I got Cam Ward as the number one QB. I came around. I was a big Shedeur guy for a while. Still like him, but Cam Ward's, the number one guy for sure. People say that he's not like a traditional number one overall pick, and I guess I agree, but I think it's a no-brainer for them. I think he'll be their
Yeah, you
franchise QB.
yeah, you're not picking one very often, so you gotta take the swings when you can. And I think he's a very high ceiling player, but I also think he has a pretty high floor as well. You see a lot of like Jaden Daniels. Like, what if he comes out and plays like Jaden Daniels? I don't think he's on that level as a prospect. I know like Daniel Jeremiah is a guy I like to look at for around this time of year for prospect scouting and rankings. He actually said this week that he would have him if Cam Ward was in this past last year's draft, he would have him on the same tier as like Bo Nix, who had a great rookie year. But that kind of goes to show the strength of this QB class.
And then going to number two to the Cleveland Browns, Travis Hunter. I think he's gonna play wide receiver primarily. Probably play cornerback on like obvious passing downs. Maybe in the future when he's more settled into the NFL, they play him both ways full time. I don't know. They got Greg Newsome expiring, Martin Emerson coming up soon. I think he's got a year left, so could be interesting. I really want to see if they pair him with Shedeur, but I mean, no matter who's throwing to him, I think he'll be number one receiver and a good ball hawk for them on passing downs as the third corner.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think a lot of people, I mean, you're the Browns fan, so you would know more than me about what they're gonna do with him. Like I mentioned, Daniel Jeremiah even said that he's probably gonna play more wide receiver, especially coming out of the gate, which I thought was pretty surprising because I always thought of him as a primary corner. But I mean, he is a dynamic wide receiver as well. That'll definitely be interesting, even if they don't get Shadur and maybe they end up with a different QB we could talk about later. You'll probably see Flacco throwing Travis Hunter the ball on Sundays this coming fall.
Yeah, no, it seemed like he was gonna play corner like primarily for a long time, but then he just like had that ridiculous year at receiver, and it's like
Hmm.
if he's gonna be the best receiver in this class, which is like there's good receivers in this class, like positional value, like you almost have to play him there because like corner, I mean corner's pretty valuable, but like especially when you're the Browns with Denzel Ward and Newsome, and I mean Emerson was bad last year, but he's a talented player. I don't think the need is necessarily there for him to play corner full time. I think he is probably better than Jerry Jeudy day one, even though Jerry Jeudy had a really good year. So I think that's what's going to happen. I'm just really interested to see who's going to be throwing him the ball.
Is this the highest? I mean, I guess Hunter's not technically a primary wide receiver in this case, but is this the highest a wide receiver? Because I think like the highest I can imagine a wide
Dalvin,
receiver going in the past. Yeah, right. Because I was thinking Chase, but he was what, five or six. So yeah,
five.
this is yeah, definitely new territory for the modern NFL. All right, but moving on, we can start. going back and forth now, even though we think these next two picks are pretty locked up. But Luch can start. Giants at 3 on the clock.
Yeah,
I think it's
Giants. I
pretty
think it's
obvious.
Carter. The betting odds reflect that. All the other mock drafts reflect that. So I think it's gonna happen. I'm interested to see what they do with Thibodeau, whether they move him or if Carter plays some off-ball linebacker. Could get interesting, but he's by far the best player available. So gotta just lock that one in. And it seems like that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Giants here luck out. I know they, like I mentioned earlier, look to trade up to 1 to maybe take Cam Ward, but I really think Abdul Carter is the best player in this draft, and I think you easily try to move on from Thibodeau unless you're just running 3 rotating pass rushers between Carter, Thibodeau, and Burns. I don't really see him playing off ball linebacker, but he definitely has the athleticism to do so. So moving on, we got New England at 4. I think New England's kind of settled on a pick, and I think it's going to be Will Campbell. I think there's a lot of like I've seen a lot of other players mocked here, whether it be Armand Membu, the tackle from Missouri. I've seen Mason Graham. I've seen a lot of options here. Even Ted McMillan earlier on in the season before his reputation kind of fell off. But yeah, I'm going to go Will Campbell here. I think he's going to stick at tackle. I think he's going to be the Patriots' left tackle for the foreseeable future. And yeah, they're locking down that left side.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what's gonna happen. Again, the odds reflect that. Been a lot of talk that Vrabel's pretty locked in on him, so makes sense. Protect Drake May. They need receiver really bad still, but Diggs really helps that as a veteran in the room. So yeah,
Diggs coming off is he coming off a torn ACL though?
yeah,
Is that
yeah,
what? Yeah.
real
So
bad.
he'll probably miss some time. But yeah, I think Campbell. I think he kind of matches Vrabel's intensity and the way he coaches. So I think that's an interesting pairing for sure.
Yeah. And then Jacksonville at 5 is where it gets really interesting. There's been a lot of Genty talk, but I don't think that's where it's gonna go. But I do think it's gonna be an offensive player. I think the Mason Graham thing's kind of over with at this point. So I'm gonna go with Ted McMillan. He's up there on the betting odds. Very polarizing player, like around the draft community it seems, and a lot of people feel like that's gonna be the same way in the NFL. But for Jacksonville, it makes a lot of sense. Liam Cohen worked with Mike Evans. A lot of people say Ted McMillan has like some similar skills, and he's a really good complement to Brian Thomas Jr. So I think a lot of people have been throwing out like offensive coach, offensive weapon, and I think it makes more sense to go with the receiver than Genty if you think Ted McMillan's really good. And
Mhm.
from what I'm hearing from the trusted sources that I go to, like you know, when following the draft, I think Ted McMillan is in play here for sure.
I'm a big fan of Ted McMillan. I think he's very smooth. I think there's the polarizing aspect of Ted McMillan is people don't think he puts in 100% effort all the time. And I mean, he has had some interesting quotes where he's like, I don't watch film, like, I don't watch anything outside of football, stuff like that, which can be concerning. It's definitely a red flag. Sorry, hold up. But I do think he's a good football player. I'm kind of surprised. I agree with you. I think all the reports, especially today, I know Schefter said Jax he would be shocked if Graham is the pick at 5 for Jacksonville. So it seems to be a complete shift to maybe 3 offensive players, whether it be Tet, Genty, or maybe even Tyler Warren as high as 5 for Jacksonville. I'm kind of surprised. I think Mason Graham would have been the smarter pick. But yeah, like you said, in a predictive mock drafts, it seems they're leading offense. So we'll see. This could also be a potential trade spot I've seen. I think they're trying to bait the Bears to jump to 5 and jump Vegas for Genty, which
If the
I
Bears
hope they
really
don't
want
do.
Gentry, like I feel like they should just do it. Like, can you get up there for a third and a future third and keep both of the seconds? Like, I don't know.
I don't know if it costs 1 of the seconds, I'm not doing it because I think in a world where Tet or Warren goes 5. preferably Tet. I think if you don't land Gentry, I think you're probably landing Mason Graham. I think he might be sliding that 10 spot. We'll see how it goes in this mock, but moving
Yeah,
on
I want to
to
see what you
Vegas,
do here at 6. If you're gonna force Chauncey down to the Bears or send him to Vegas, because I think he's headed to Vegas personally.
think I think it's false smoke. I know it's Pete Carroll's the coach there and kind of an old school running the football. Like Gentry is probably the best player available. I do think they have problems on the offensive line though. So I think this is a Membu spot moving down the line. I also think everything I'm seeing is that Kelvin Banks is going to go a lot higher than people are anticipating. So I think O-line's going to come off the board heavy in the top 10. So I do think Membu is going to be the pick for Vegas at 6. That's what I'm rolling with.
All right, Jets at 7.
Another interesting spot.
Yeah, I don't know. Membu makes a lot of sense to Vegas. They need help on the right side for sure. This one for the Jets is tough. I've invested a lot into the D line, defensive coach. I could see an edge here, like Jalen Walker or Michael Williams. Aaron Glenn there, like some people would talk about a DB, maybe Barron too, but I think Detroit had a lot of success, like having a bunch of guys that were really good on the interior. So I think I'm just gonna go with Mason Graham here. It seems like it's gonna be a defensive player, and he's the best one available. I think there's a scenario where he falls like to 10 or 11, but I think here I'm just gonna go with the Jets taking him at 7 instead of an edge because I think they've really threw a lot of darts at edge. I don't know if they want to spend the 7th pick on when you can get a bona fide, have 2 3 down D tackles. I think that's
Yeah,
a
that
slam dunk.
would make a interesting and potentially fantastic interior D line for the Jets. Quinnen Williams and Mason Graham would be very fun to watch. I mean, Graham isn't really someone who jumps off the page when you're looking at measurables or like 40 times, anything like that, but he's a really good football player. I think he's definitely one of the blue chip talents in this draft.
Next to Quinnen Williams too, that could be very
Yeah.
helpful.
So I think that would be a great pick there. I'm really hoping that Graham or Gentry is just there at 10 and the Bears don't have to move. If we're talking trade up potential, I think 8 might be a sweet spot for the Bears to jump up because I know, especially if they do want Gentry, and in this scenario where he is here, you have Dallas back there at 12 who could potentially jump you. So I'm not going to trade up here with Carolina at 8. I think they really want to go offense, and I think they really want Tet. So in this scenario, he's not here. The whole offseason, I feel like Jalen Walker has been a big Carolina spot, which I don't mind.
Yeah,
I
for
do
me that
think
would
Mike.
be it would be one of the Georgia guys. I think it'd be an edge for sure.
I do like Michael Williams. He is very young. He had production in college. I think he just turned 20 years old, if I saw that correctly. I'm gonna go with Jalen Walker because I feel like he's the best edge outside of Abdul Carter in the draft.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Pretty chalk pick. That's what I would do. I think Kimmer Williams will go there on Thursday. They need edge help really badly. They could use a receiver too, like you said, but the way this board plays out, I think it's edge for sure.
Mm.
Another tough pick at 9. Not really a slam dunk here for New Orleans. Like, I don't think taking a running back is realistic for them. I don't think taking a quarterback is realistic for them at 9. I don't think taking Tyler
Potential trade
Boyd
out
is
spot.
realistic either. But I also don't know who would trade up. Like, Gentry's there, but, like, is Dallas. It's just hard, too, because, like, if Dallas is going to give up a third to move up from 12, like, would the Bears give up a fourth to move up one spot? Like, probably. And New
Mm-hmm.
Orleans would probably rather move down one spot and get their guy. So I think, like, for the sake of this mock draft, I'm just going to leave them at 9. And I think I'm going to go with Calvin Banks because they They have four guys on the O line. They like Trevor Penning's terrible. They need they need another tackle. Like you said, all reports seem that he's going to go higher than expected, and it just makes sense for me. It seems like, excuse me, it seems like it'll be offense for them. I think O line makes the most sense in the scenario with the receiver off the board, running back and tight end not really being in play at nine for them with their needs. I
Hmm.
think tackle makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and then Ramchek retiring obviously helps boost their O
Oh yeah,
line
they don't even
potential.
have four guys anymore. Ramczyk retired. I forgot about that the other day. Yeah, tackle's a huge need for them now.
Hmm. I don't mind that pick. I think they're I mean, obviously with the uncertainty to Carr, I think Shadur is probably in play. He doesn't seem like a New Orleans player, honestly. Like I don't
I've
trying to
seen a
think.
lot of reports saying that like it 100% won't be Shadur at nine,
Okay.
and I've heard reports
I
that they like Dart too. So
I could see that. I was gonna say Kellen Moore might be a dark guy over Shadur, but yeah, coming in here at 10, my Chicago Bears. I think they're in this scenario, they're running to the podium and they're taking Genty. Obviously, you've seen the work Ben Johnson has done in Detroit with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Genty is, in my opinion, of the caliber of those Jahmyr Gibbs picks, the Bijan picks. He put up an all-time season at Boise State. He played well against the bigger competition like Oregon and Penn State. I mean, there's that crazy stat where it's Genty after contact or before. I think I can't remember if it's before or after contact, but he's like the second leading rusher in the country behind himself for his total yards, which is just crazy. I think it's after, but yeah, I mean, easy pick for the Bears. I mean, it's gonna expand the offense so much, and he's probably gonna rush for 1,500 yards his rookie year.
yeah, no, I agree. I think this is a slam dunk. Bears will be ready to go with this pick. I think it's just like an explosive player to add to this offense. A lot of talk about Romo Dunze, like too, with Antoine Randall L. Hyping him up. So I think the Bears could be really, really fun next year. And getting Detroit, we're known on offense for just having all these explosive playmakers behind in front of Jared Goff, I guess. And they had their great O line, and it looks like the Bears are following the same formula, but they have a dynamic QB in Caleb Williams, so that should be really fun. San Francisco at 11. Seen a lot of Walter Nolan. They're probably really hoping Mason Graham falls to them too. D tackle, huge need. But I also think that they could use like a second edge, and that's kind of like best player available here. So I am going to go with Michael Williams, pair him with Bosa, beef up that D line, dynamic player. I think interior makes more sense for them, but with Williams making it to 11, like I think that's just too good to pass up. Robert Saleh coming back, give him Williams and Bosa, and he'll make something happen. He'll figure it out on the inside.
I like
There's
it.
also depth
I
in the
think
class too. They could pick up someone in the second round too that could start for them.
it's true. I like it. I think this is also a potential. I think this is the range you're gonna see a trade. If someone doesn't come up for Genty in this five area, I think 11 to 14, you could potentially see a trade happening for Shadur or even Dart. Who knows who goes before who? So in this scenario, we have Dallas here at 12. Tough spot. I mean, running back has been rumored all offseason, I feel like. I don't see them taking Hampton here. Tight end would be interesting. Tyler Warren there. Colston Loveland would be interesting. They do need an edge. DeMarcus Lawrence left.
Seen a lot of Matthew Golden here.
I don't mind that either. I think I'm gonna trade out here. I think I'm gonna trade out. Let's see. Not gonna make this a super realistic trade for the sake of just getting the pick, but I think Pittsburgh wants Shadur, and I think they're gonna come up from 21. It'll probably cost them next year's second. So let's just say that. It's a big jump. 21 to 12. It's about like what the Bears traded up for Fields and they gave up an extra first. So I think that's not a bad idea. So I'm gonna go Shadur here at 12 to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. I don't think Pittsburgh's a Shedeur team. I think it's probably too early for a trade up, honestly.
I mean, I saw conflicting reports that his meeting didn't with the team didn't go well. I also saw him with him on like a podcast with Max Crosby today saying do like Mount Rushmore of QB wide receiver duos, and he was like Tom Brady and Gronk, Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, and then he goes whoever's throwing the ball to DK Metcalf on the Steelers. I think Shadur thinks he's going to Pittsburgh. I think they desperately need a quarterback. They've been searching for a quarterback. They thought Fields might have been the guy. They let him go. I think they're coming up to get Shadur.
Yeah, I don't like it, but I guess that's what we're rolling with. That changes things for me. Miami at 13. I think they need help at corner desperately. Jalen Ramsey seems to be on the way out. So I'm going to go with Barron here. I think he's dynamic and fits what they
Over
need.
Johnson.
I think it's
Over
a
Will
better fit for the
Johnson.
team.
Yeah, I can see it. I do think Will Johnson is going to be the first corner off the board. I do think he's the best corner in the draft still. I don't mind that though. I think that's definitely a need for them. Is Ramsey? How even is he even? I can't remember if he's still on my. He is. I can't remember. I feel like he got hurt a bunch last season, but they were injured to all hell last year, so don't mind that pick. Moving on to Indianapolis at 14. This is definitely a tight end play. Let's see. What does NFL mock draft database say their team needs are tight end, interior O line, safety, corner, maybe a potential Will Johnson spot. I don't see it. I don't think Gray Zabel comes off the board this high. So I do think I'm going tight end. I think it's going to be Tyler Warren. I could see him going as high as the top 10, like we mentioned, as high as potentially Jacksonville at 5. I don't know if he's the best tight end in the draft. Him and Loveland are two completely different players. I think I would go Loveland over Warren, though, if I had the choice.
Yeah, I think Indianapolis is definitely going to take one of the tight ends. I think both of them will be available on draft night. Um, I don't know who they're going to take because I kind of agree. I don't really think Warren's that great. I think he's being overhyped a little bit. I think Loveland's right
Hmm.
there, if not better. So that'll be an
Hmm.
interesting one. And then moving on to Atlanta at 15. I think this is definitely going to be defense again. Could have been a potential trade out spot if Pittsburgh didn't come flying up. I think I'm going to go. Will Johnson makes sense. Walter Nolan makes sense. I think Will Johnson's kind of like comparable to AJ Terrell, so I think like I heard someone say like having two AJ Terrells is a great thing, so I kind of agree with that. I'm just gonna go with Will Johnson at 15 to Atlanta, double up on AJ Terrells, and that should be a good cornerback room.
Like that a lot. Will Johnson, like I said, is my personal top corner in the draft. I think he's a very good player. I mean, obviously was hurt all last year pretty much. Has been hurt in the offseason, but I do think Atlanta's getting a top 10 caliber player in this class. Arizona here at 16. I think this has to be an edge rusher. So two top available on the board: Shamar Stewart and Mike Green. What's the interior looking like? Derek Harmon's not a bad shout either. Walter Nolan. I do think this is going to be Mike Green. I think when I think of Arizona, I mean, obviously Jonathan Gannon's the coach. Um, you gotta look back at the Philly defense that he had. I think Mike Green just, to me, is a better comp to what I've seen from Jonathan Gannon defenses. Obviously, he has the questions, the off the field stuff, but if everything's okay, he's a very good football player, had some great production, so we'll see.
And I mean, Jonathan Gannon's definitely had to work with some off the field issue guys in Philadelphia. How he's not scared to take those guys. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Edge is a huge need. And then for the Bengals, I'm kind of going to go with the same thing. I think they need help on defense really bad. And I think Shamar Stewart really makes a lot of sense. They have a big edge in Trey Hendrickson on one side, so I think you pair him with Shamar Stewart, who's also a really big edge but really athletic. I think that could be a really nice duo. and really help out on the defense there, which was not great last year.
Are they just not trading Trey Hendrickson?
I guess
Well,
not.
they're just gonna let him ride out his deal. They're probably figure out a way to re-sign him. NFL cap is non-existent, so we'll see. So we got Seattle here at 18. I think to me this is probably an O lineman.
I think it's a slam dunk. Gray's able if he's on the board. They need
Yeah,
receivers so bad.
that's what I'm thinking. He gives them options to play the inside. He can play either guard spot or center.
I think Booker's on the table too. Booker's like kind of been falling for no reason, I think.
Yeah, but I think Booker fits more in a pass first offense, which I
Yeah, that's
don't
true.
think.
They were saying he doesn't fit in the Shanahan type of scheme, so
Mhm. I will go Gray Zabel, like for the reasons we said. It's got it. I think this has to be an interior alignment. Obviously, the versatility there. Usually, when FCS players go to the Senior Bowl and dominate, they dominate. They have success in the NFL. Look at I'm thinking Quinn Miners with Denver, a great example. So, big fan of Gray Zabel. He flew up draft boards this offseason after the Senior Bowl. Senior Bowl. So yeah, he's the pick here at 18 for Seattle.
moving on to Tampa at 19. I think this one's pretty chalk. I've seen this in literally every mock draft, and he's literally projected 19 for a reason. Jihad Campbell going to Tampa Bay. I think he's a pretty dynamic player. They could be creative with him if they want. Probably going to primarily be off ball, but like could play off the edge some too. Yeah, just a really interesting player to add there, and it really seems like that's going to happen. So
Yeah, that's a big Todd Bowles pick. I am a big fan of Campbell. I think he's one of the probably best defensive players in the draft. Obviously, linebacker kills the draft stock. But yeah, I think that's a great team, picking up a great player. Just a smart play. Going to help the defense a lot. Definitely going to be a leader of that defense for years to come. So, Denver at 20 is very interesting because I see two options here. It's going to be Hampton or Loveland, if I had to assume. I think they desperately want a running back. So I'm gonna go Hampton here. But if I had to do it myself, I would take Loveland. But I do. They lost Javonte Williams this offseason, and I think Sean Payton sees Hampton as maybe his Kamara. Not very comparable players, but Hampton can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's more of a Joe Mixon type of running back, in my opinion. So we'll see. But I think they're gonna go running back. I think if Hampton's gone, I think Travion Henderson could be in play at 20, or like I said, Loveland could be in play as well.
I think that one makes a lot of sense. They need running back bad. I think just weapons overall are in play there, but Sean Payton really like a running back whisperer, so I think Hampton going there makes a ton of sense. Gonna be a really good fantasy option too, which desperately needs some good fantasy running backs. Dallas at 21. I think Dallas kind of gets really lucky here because I think Matthew Golden's like really in play for them at 12 and like the real draft. I kind of don't see them trading out of that, so I think Matthew Golden here. And I think that's what's going to happen at 12 on Thursday. I think that one makes a ton of sense. Really good compliment to CeeDee Lamb. Keep him in
Mm-hmm.
Texas. Yeah, that's great value at 21 there.
I give Dak some options. I like the pick. It'll be interesting to see if they go wide receiver or running back because I do think those are probably on top of the two positions on top of their board. 22 here. We got the Chargers. I think this is sprint to the podium. Colston Loveland.
Yeah, pretty sure.
Reconnect with Harbaugh. He's going to be a dynamic piece of that offense. I think he's not going to put up. He's not on the same talent level as Brock Bowers, but I could see him putting up huge numbers in that offense, which could rival Bowers in some way. He's one of my favorite players in the draft. If the Bears stick at 10 and Gentry's not there, I would rather see them pick up Loveland than Tyler Warren. So yeah, I think that's an easy pick for the Chargers. I think they're praying for him to fall. We'll see if he does fall that far. But yeah, I think that's an easy pick for Harbaugh. So moving on, we got Green Bay, the host team for the draft
Yeah, I'm
at
locked in on
23.
this one here.
I think they just need
They need receiver, corner. There's only one Georgia defensive player for Brian Gutekunst to take, and he's not athletic, so he won't pick him. I think corner's probably the biggest need because it seems like Jair's on his way out. So I'm gonna go with Maxwell Harrison here to Green Bay. I think he's really good athlete, and that's kind of what they like on defense, like Eric Stokes, and then like all the freak athletes they picked on the D line and linebacker. So I think that makes a lot of sense as a fit there in Green Bay.
Yeah, I can see it, especially if Jair's on the way out. I think personally here, I probably would have gone one of the D tackles. I think there's a lot of talent on the board still with Nolan, Grant, or Harmon. Eamon Warry's still here. So a lot of options for Green Bay there, unfortunately.
Yeah, Eamon Moore is definitely a Gutekunst pick. That makes a lot of sense too.
Speaking of Eamon Warry, I think I'm going to take him here at 24 for Minnesota. I think they kind of have similar needs to Green Bay. I think the D linemen are definitely in play still. There's a lot of talent on there, but I think Eamon Warry here to Minnesota makes a lot of sense.
I think so too. They need help in the DB room. Great athlete. Interested to see how he's used in the NFL, but I think in that system with Brian Flores, I think he'd be set up to succeed really well. So
Him next to Harrison Smith would be interesting for sure.
yeah, that's a good mentor. Definitely polar opposite like
Yeah,
athletes, but I guess Eamon Warren kind of plays a similar role, right? Because he was kind of used like more as a box kind of guy. So
yeah, yeah.
that could be a good fit for sure. Houston at 25. I think they need a receiver badly, but I don't necessarily think like this is a great
Buka.
spot to just like stick and pick one. So I am gonna trade this to Cleveland. I think Jalen Milrose in the draft room for a reason, and I think if you're gonna take him at 33, you might as well give up a late third round pick to move up and get the fifth year options. That's what I'm gonna have here. Cleveland moving up for Milroe. Houston sliding back a couple spots, and they'll take a receiver at the top of the second round probably.
Here we go. Got to figure out the. All right. Over Dart. You would
Yeah,
go
I don't like
Milrow over
Dart.
Dart? All
And
right.
Cleveland's been very tied to Milroe too. I haven't heard really much about Dart. It's been mostly Shadur Milroe and then like a little bit of Tyler Shooks.
Interesting. Yeah, Shook's kind of flown out. Like, people say he might be the third best QB in the class, which is crazy because he's
Yeah,
already
I've
like
seen people have
25.
him too, but like I wouldn't touch him at 26. I just
All right. We got the Rams here at 26. Speaking of Dart, I could see him potentially going here. I do think Milrow would be a really interesting option here. I don't
yeah, that's
know.
why I
I
had
think
them trade
him.
up right here because the Rams I just feel like is a really interesting QB spot because you don't know with
Hmm.
Stafford at this point. He could decide any year that that's it.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of interesting options here. You could go wide receiver. I think Ibuka or Burden would be very interesting with McVay. I would probably lean Ibuka to kind of fill that cup role. You could also go corner. I like Siobhan Ravel. Uh, let's see. Old line. There's a few good. I like Simmons and Connerly. Simmons came into the year as probably the tackle one in this draft if he didn't get hurt. A
Yeah, I've
lot of
seen people
interesting
say that
options.
Simmons would go like top five, top 10 if he wasn't hurt, and that he's like unlikely to go in the first round now. So
I can't imagine him falling out of the first. If he does, that would be great because I really want the Bears to pick him up. This is tough. There's a lot of ways you can go. I think I'm going to say they're going to take Dart. Stafford's getting up there in age. He just signed his extension for 2 years, I want to say. But yeah, I think Dart could slide in behind Stafford, learn a lot, and could potentially lead McVay's offense in a few years.
yeah, I think it's a good pick. I don't really like Dart, but I mean, if he's gonna succeed anywhere, it's probably with Sean McVay and sitting behind Matthew Stafford for a year. So I think that pick makes a lot of sense. Rams definitely a QB spot. Baltimore, I think Baltimore just kind of tends to pick up the scraps at the end of the first round. So I think Walter
Always.
Nolan makes a lot of sense here. Could be an O line spot too, but I think I am gonna go with Nolan because I think he's my best player available, and like it seems like that injury with Simmons is just like really unique and like off-putting for a lot of teams. So I'm probably not gonna mock him in the first round as much as I have heard he's a great player, so
Hmm.
I think
So fair.
Nolan makes a ton of sense here. Throw him next to Matabuike, and that's dynamic. Three down
Hmm.
defensive tackle duo. So
I like that. I think you were spot on with your analysis there. Baltimore always finds a good player later in the draft that falls. I think Malachi Starks would have been interesting there.
yeah, I saw that earlier. I think it was the
Yeah,
Shelby mock draft. Yeah,
just to throw him in that defensive backfield. A lot of talent back there. I think that would be cool. Like we said, there's still Kenneth Grant, Derek Harmon, James Pierce would be an interesting option. Maybe even another wide receiver in Ibuka or Burden. So we got Detroit here at 28. I think this has to be defense, preferably defensive line. And I think I'm going to take Derek Harmon. Detroit got killed on the D line with injuries last year, and they're playing some absolute scrubs. Al-Qadim Mohammed was playing, who was absolutely brutal for the Bears a few years ago. So I think Derek Harmon's a really nice get there, a really good player. Kind of slips a little bit more than I would expect him to, but yeah, Detroit gets a great player here at 28.
yeah, I like that pick a lot. Like you said, slips a little bit, but I think he ends up in a great spot in Detroit where he can make an impact day one and goes to a great team with a great coach. So
And I think
really nice.
Ali McNeil is probably out for a decent chunk of this year. I think he maybe tore an ACL if I remember correctly. So they definitely have a need at D line. So I
Yeah,
think
really
I
good
think it
pick.
makes sense.
Good fit. Washington, I feel like Washington has needs, but they seem like they're kind of like going all in on this like build around Jaden Daniels, like playmakers everywhere kind of thing. And I think there's a hole at running back, so I am gonna go with Travion Henderson and have three running backs go in the
Hmm.
first round. Um,
Okay.
I
I don't
think
think I've seen them take a running back.
I saw them taking Hampton in one earlier. I don't think he gets there,
Okay. Yeah.
but I've heard a lot of buzz about Henderson going higher than expected, and I think like, that kind of fits the bill with what Washington's been doing this offseason.
Okay. I don't mind that. I thought you were gonna go wide receiver. I thought you were gonna go with Buka, maybe add another Ohio State wide receiver to that wide receiver room. I know Luther Burden has been vocal about potentially landing in Washington, especially during the college season. So I think that would have been an interesting pick. But I don't mind the Travion Henderson. Good pass blocker, can catch the ball in the backfield, has home run potential on breaking through on runs. So I think that would be interesting for sure. Um, it's definitely something I haven't seen before. So I like that. So we got Buffalo at 30. I'm between three players, I think. I think Ibuka is a good fit here, even though Shakir is a slot there. So maybe he wouldn't slide in. He would have to play outside. Kenneth Grant is an option I like a lot. James Pierce or Siobhan Ravel. I think I'm going to take Kenneth Grant. Big run stuffer, big boy. Kind of he's a pretty good athlete for his size. So I like that pick for Buffalo. They're just shoring up the defensive line, excuse me. Getting a great player there at 30.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. I think Buffalo probably needs a receiver, but they probably feel good that they can get one at the end of the second round or even move up a little bit for one.
Hmm.
And Grant's a great player, so and they need a lot of help on defense too. 31, I did say that I wouldn't do Josh Simmons in the first round, but like Kansas City makes a lot of ballsy picks and they need a lot of help on the offensive line. So I think that's what I'm gonna do here. Yeah, I think Kansas City, Josh Simmons address a need, take on a little bit of risk, but like every time Kansas City does that, it seems like it either works out or a backup plan falls into place for him. So I think
Very
Simmons
good
makes a
pick
lot of
there.
sense. Swing on upside there.
Yeah, yeah. High risk, high reward there for Kansas City, a team that can risk it. I mean, if Simmons is healthy, like people are saying he is, he's gonna be blocking for Patrick Mahomes for the next 10 years. So
Yeah, I kind of
definitely,
expected you to take him, but like I don't think I would have picked him for anybody but Kansas City. Maybe Philly, because Howie like kind of does the same thing, but Philly's a line's
mm-hmm.
kind of set, so I think Kansas City's really the only spot for him that I could have done. And There's no
Yeah,
one else that I think's like a huge need for them. Connerly can make sense there, but I think KC's the
yeah. I
team.
I like both those tackles. I like Connerly and Simmons. If the Bears are feeling like Braxton Jones might need some competition, I would love to see them trade up in the late first to pick up one of them. So capping off the first round, we got Philly here, Super Bowl champs. I mean, I have to take Malachi Starks. It just makes so much sense. We got Georgia North. They just traded CJ Gardner Johnson. There's a hole at safety. I love Sidney Brown. I don't know if he's a starting caliber safety. But yeah, Malachi Starks is a great player. I think he's going to slip a little bit due to some athleticism concerns, but great football player. And I think just making the Philly defense even stronger with more Georgia. What a shock.
I thought you were gonna go with James Pierce there, just Howie picking up the scraps with the athletic players. But Malachi Starks makes a ton of sense too, like you said. DJ Gardner Johnson heading out, and the Georgia connection. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense there. Yeah, James Pierce falling out of the first round, really surprising. And he's not going to go 33 either, because I think this is a layup for Houston. I think Ibuka going back with Stroud at 33, trading down and still being able to pick him up, that just makes way too much sense. I think that's how I'll close it out. Ibuka going in his draft board slot of 33, teaming back up with Stroud in Houston.
Big pickup. I like that. First round plus an additional pick so Houston can have so we can get the Houston fans a pick in here.
Yeah. Nobody with two first round picks this year, like before draft day, which is crazy. I feel like every year
hmm
there's usually a team with double.
So that is our mock draft. First round plus an additional pick, 33 picks. But yeah, so we'll post that. We can get the results. We'll post that. Kind of see how we did after. We'll come back for a little recap after the first round, kind of compare how we did. We're also going to post our own mock drafts, what we think is going to happen, because obviously we agreed with some of the picks there. But that's looking forward to Thursday. Definitely one of the best sports times of the year. We got NBA, NHL playoffs going on, NFL draft. So we'll be back we'll record on Friday night or Saturday morning or Saturday sometime to get our first round reactions, kind of some of the picks we liked, some of the picks we didn't like, shockers, favorite players left on the board. Thursday, yeah. So
Thursday, right?
Friday or Saturday. Yeah. So we'll be back Friday, most likely, to talk about some of the picks we liked. And yeah, that's it, guys. See you next time.